This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, let's start the discussions. I think we are already 5 minutes over the committed time. So this is Niladri, and Parsi will be with me for walk you through for the fundamentals of DevOps. And before we start, I want to thanks everyone for taking your time, especially on a weekend, and attending this webinar. I think it will be learning for you as well. Us will came to know many situations from your side. Feel free to ask any questions on the comment window. Probably our forum will be 45 minutes. We'll be talking about this particular topic, and then we'll take some question answers, and later we'll see if the time permits we can talk about something else if possible. So I'll hand it over to Amit. Thanks, Amit, for participating also. Let's begin. Percy, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Niladida. Hi, everyone. Uh, very good evening to all of you, irrespective of the time zone from where you have all joined. A very warm welcome. And as Niladri had suggested, had already informed, this is a repeat of our webinar we had conducted a couple of months before. And we got very good responses, and it was a very interactive webinar. So I hope you'll all I hope my voice is clear to all. My voice is audible, Niladrita.
Yes, yes.
So I hope you'll all enjoy the webinar, and most importantly, as the fundamental principle of Agile and DevOps suggests, let's collaborate and let's make it a collaborative webinar instead of me just speaking. I am sure we all have a wide and rich experience on implementing and truly evangelizing Agile across our organization. So with that hope, we'll start the webinar. A very short introduction about myself. I have been working primarily in DevOps and as a Scrum Master, and primarily into DevOps for in DevOps for more than 6 years. And currently, I'm also working on AWS, implementing continuous integration, deployment, and other DevOps practices in AWS, continuous testing, etc. in AWS. So and I'm very interested in apart from DevOps, I'm also super interested in data science, and specifically machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that's a brief about myself. I'm from Kolkata in India. So now we'll start. So as the title of the webinar suggests, this is a quick introduction, or a very basic introduction, a basic discussion on DevOps, primarily on what DevOps means, and to as an individual, for an individual, and also for an organization, and what is the role that DevOps plays in bringing more agility and becoming a pillar or a cornerstone for the agile transformation of any organization. And then we will look into some technical aspects of DevOps, not only process wise but also from a technical standpoint. What are the different technical pillars of DevOps, and what are the different success factors that DevOps implementation depends on. And then we are going to introduce you into some of our offerings, Agile Digest offerings on DevOps, to enable you to get started with, also to have a rich hands-on experience. So we'll get started. Um, this is our agenda. We have DevOps. We'll just do a gentle introduction to DevOps, why and what of DevOps. We'll learn about why and what of DevOps, and then we'll introduce you to our course structure that we have as an offering for you, for as a group or as an individual, for DevOps consulting and training. So before we start, since we'll open the webinar for question answers after 45 minutes of we discussing on what DevOps is. We will start with some mindset that people have, specifically what we have seen from our experience. Some people have, specifically agile coach, senior people who are transforming an organization, who are bringing agility to an organization, and also to budding scrum masters, budding software engineers who want to transform themselves into DevOps consultants, etc. So there are two mindsets basically which is prevalent now. One is something like, oh my god, it's DevOps, because some people have a mindset, not people also, I mean, collaboratively I can say teams also have a mindset that DevOps is a rocket science kind of a thing. It's extremely new, it's an extremely new set of tools, set of processes that has been pushed into an organization, and you are told to work on it. Or it's some kind of a foreign thing that will sit upon you on top of your applications. So people have a scary mindset about DevOps, that it's something new and something very hard, a very hard nut to crack with. And some people have very cornered or very specific information about DevOps. As you can see in this picture, this is this is a well-known story of some blind men trying to touch and feel an elephant and guess what an elephant is. So some of the blind men will say that an elephant is a tail. Some says it's a trunk. Some says it's a big body with big body with a lot of flesh, etc. Some says it's just the teeth, just the trunk of the elephant, etc. But so there are very in nooks and corners of an organization, or in nooks and corners of a application delivery lifecycle, there are people who has the mindset that DevOps is about continuous integration, or DevOps is about continuous deployment, or DevOps is about continuous testing. So or DevOps is only about tools, or it's only about culture. So these are the two prevalent mindsets in the industry now. One being a scary mindset and not going into DevOps, or not transitioning, I would say, into DevOps from an agile coach or a scrum master point of view. And one mindset is with software engineers who have been working with in programming or in database tuning, database in the database management field, or in whatever field, and not transitioning or not getting a full on picture of what DevOps is in totality. So why are we at all doing this webinar? The first of, as discussed, our first goal is to learn what is DevOps, and what is our take on DevOps. And secondly is because of the pace of change. So as we all know, and it's very, it's nothing new to discuss now, that digital transformation is on full swing now, it's on full edge. So any organization, be it a software organization, a service organization, or a product organization, or even organizations that doesn't directly deal with information technology, like for example whose core business is something completely different, like say maybe app cabs like Ola, Uber, or e-commerce sites like Amazon or Flipkart. I'm just taking the big names because they are evidently known to a lot of people. Then maybe the food giants, food delivery giants like Food Panda, etc. Even like streaming applications like Netflix. So all of those, even banks, restaurants, etc. All of those whose core business is not IT, is also now digitizing their business. And that is not only internally, like they are not advertising it internally that banks are digitizing the business, or their a core restaurant is digitizing his business. It's not done internally. It's a kind of advertisement they're putting onto the end consumers also. So if they go to a bank and if they have a very good mobile application to brag about, it's not hidden in the corners of the bank now. It's being advertised, and customers are being told that if you just imagine bank advertising itself like 10 years back, and if you see the advertises now, the advertisements have become rapidly digitized. Like customers know what platform they're using. Customers even know what is being how is their Android app being developed, etc. Right? So you get my point. Digitization is a must now. It's not a good to have thing, or it's not a business enabler, but it's a it's a way businesses, it's actually core business. So digital business is becoming the core business of modern organizations. So with this fast pace of change, incoming needs of artificial intelligence, application portability, application dockerability, application containerization, all this, and also the rate at which an application is changing, or the at the rate at which business just the business use cases of an application is being deployed into production is increasing at a tremendous pace. Like, if I am right, many software, 80% of, I mean, this is the Gartner figure I'm quoting here, 80% of organizations which are using Java as their core business technology language, 80% of those organizations are deploying code almost continuously. By continuously, I mean at least once a day in their production servers. So 80% of organization deploying code once a day in a server means a huge change. If you see it just uh, 2 years back, if you see, just go 2 or 3 years back, it would have been unimaginable, and it would have been like not so much required also, because business was still at a emerging digital age at that time. But now it has become a mandate for all the business to deploy every day, at least every day, in production. So the pace of change is accelerating enormously. And these are something the leaders are saying, not we from Agile Digest, or not anyone from the industry. These are business leaders who are saying that technological progress in 21st century will be equivalent to 200 centuries years of progress. So, and what more important is the third platform. By the third platform, we mean the changes that are coming into infrastructure of applications. Today, the more applications are becoming evidently more and more data intensive. So we are getting applications which are consuming huge amounts of data, like terabytes of data every day, from streaming media, from other applications, from market facing APIs, etc. So just for example, if you go to to just to bring up a contextual point here, today we had a live webinar in YouTube from Agile Digest for covering a lot of agile related topics. So those streaming data from from YouTube is now being used by many organizations to promote their digital marketing strategy, and not just from YouTube, from all kinds of streaming applications which are huge, right? Netflix, and we have Amazon Prime, etc. So so this streaming data, then your click data, whatever you are, wherever you are going in a website, whatever you are doing, you are leaving a digital footprint in the entire web world. And this is being increasingly used by all the e-commerce providers. So if you search something in Amazon, like a book or something, or a t-shirt or something, and then if you go to Facebook, or if you go to some other website, you will clearly see, and I'm sure you have all experienced this, you will see that that particular book, or that particular t-shirt, or something like that kind of a book, like most similar to that kind of a book, gets advertised in that website. So this comes from, and this becomes almost instantaneous, and this comes from the capability that big data is providing us. But how does this huge amount of data gets processed almost real time, and gets displayed to the end consumer? I mean, this can't be done using a legacy system, or a system that is not elastic. When I say elastic, it's in quotes. It means it can be expendable to any degree. It can be expendable or contracted to any degree at any point of time. So in comes cloud. So to support this huge, enormous infrastructure, elastic infrastructure requirement, in comes cloud. And as you have seen, even banks who was very skeptical in implementing cloud because of security reasons, are now going into cloud because of competition demands. So as per the Indian rule, as per the Indian RBI rule, even AWS has Amazon has set up data centers in Mumbai for local consumption, for local cloud consumption, and this will grow. This has been growing. These companies are investing huge amounts of money in cloud, and the number of applications that are growing per year into cloud is growing day by day. And this has given birth to a new kind of IT strategy called application portfolio rationalization, which is also increasingly increasing. The demand for that is increasingly increasing day by day. So next is transformation is mobile, being mobile. So you as you all know now, every website, every software that you use almost has a uh, has a mobile component attached to it. So and this mobile component also pushes data along with the main app, and along with the application, that is a website or a web application, also pushes data together into the database servers or into the server, which is like almost instantaneously consumed and converted into meaningful data again and thrown back to the consumer. So this in cycle that goes on for time and being, that goes on like almost instantaneously, is how is this this will not be possible without a very agile and very flexible as well as very robust software application delivery life cycle. So you see the need is coming from the business, because the business is changing, because the way business is interacting with the consumer is changing. So this need comes from business, and the need is being transformed into technical requirements in form of platforms such as cloud, like for example AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, GCP, etc. Big data like Hadoop, machine learning services, um, machine learning services as cloud, etc. Mobile application development, rapid application development, and of course social media like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So this increasingly changing dynamics of software development, software interaction with the end consumer, and software B2B interaction, like business to business interaction with software, gives the that like as you all know, necessity is the mother of invention. So this gives the requirement, this gives the necessary implication to have a very robust, yet flexible, error free, and fast. The fast is a like a buzzword here, is the most important word here. A fast and agile software development platform or software development pipeline, where requirements from the day the requirement is being gathered to the time where the software is being deployed in the production server, tested and tried and deployed in the production server, this entire life cycle becomes smooth, becomes fast, agile, error free, and is very importantly automated. Because as you know, if you have to deploy software, I'm talking about comparatively low scale, comparatively slow scaled software deployments of once a day into production. Even if I'm talking about that, as you know, that to deploy at that scale also, to maintain that agility also, it's very important to have the infrastructure in place, to have the testing in place, and more importantly code quality in place. So keeping in mind of all that, comes the birth or comes the necessity of having a framework or having a set of patterns embedded in our software development life cycle. So here comes the necessity of having DevOps. So we'll come into that a bit later again. So what is a DevOps vision? Before we go into that, let us just have a let us just try to define what DevOps is. Let us try to have a very simple definition of DevOps, which will stay in your mind and which will serve as the necessary runway or necessary path for our forthcoming discussion. So to simply define what DevOps is, so DevOps is basically a set of patterns which involves process, people, and technology to deliver software faster and easier, and in a well-tested manner. So that is what DevOps is. So let's break down the definition to understand it more clearly. So when I say set of patterns, it means it's a set of practices, a set of principles, governance framework, and tools which involves all the three components, all the three levers as people, process, and technology. And the main ambition of this particular uh, set of patterns is to deliver software faster and to deliver software error free. So that essentially is what DevOps is. So it's basically everything that you do or everything that needs to be done to, in terms of people, process, and technology, to make your software deliver faster. And it doesn't mean that by fast you will compromise on quality. So deliver software faster with and error free. So that is what DevOps is. So basically, if we break down the word dev and ops, it means the developer and operations. I'm sure you all are pretty aware of this definition, that it's a way or it's a philosophy in which, or it's by philosophy, I again mean people, process, tools, by which a developer and operation people will come together, break the wall between them, and try to develop and deploy the software faster. So let me give you a simple example. When I started when I started development, I was working in Java, and I was a developer, and I was developing in Java. So when I developed a piece of code, I used to test it using JUnit test cases, and then I used to test it once in my own machine as an executable or as a jar, whatever. And then I used to deploy the code. I used to send the code in the main branch. I mean, whatever source control system we were using, send the code in the main branch, in the main repository, and that's it. My job was done. So the the trouble used to start later when the operations team, who will be deploying the code in the client infrastructure, the the trouble would be that sometime the code won't run in the client infrastructure. Sometime the way I am looking at the screen, the screen configuration changes when it goes into the client machine, etc. So to solve this problem, and at that time the term DevOps was also not there. To solve this problem, we we came up with a very simple solution. We made sure that from the beginning of the project, the development would be done on machines. I mean, by machines, I mean virtual machines, would be done on machines which was of the same configuration as a client desktop. We used to ask our very first ask while developing a web application was to ask that which machine the client will be running on. The configuration, operating system, software, etc., entire thing of the client machine, entire configuration of the client machine. And though it did not solve all the problems, it solved the UI related problem, the user interface related problem drastically. It improved drastically, almost like we got 80-90% improvement on UI related problems. So that is what a fundamental pillar of DevOps is: communication. So you get together with the operations team, get together with the client, and jot down the requirements, infrastructure requirements or business requirement or whatever, and then start the work. One more thing that DevOps involve and is not in standard definitions of textbook is requirement gathering. So software development doesn't start with the developer. It starts with gathering the requirements from the client. So uh, in this process of requirement gathering, the requirements should be gathered not as an independent identity by the business analysts of the organization talking with the client, but in participation with the developer. And the requirements, ideally, in a DevOps world or in a true agile world, should ideally be written in the same IDE where the developer will be coding. I know this is not possible for some technology, like say maybe ERP technologies like SAP, or say CRM platforms like SFDC, etc. But if you are developing applications in Java, .NET, or uh, most of the custom application developments are done in Java, .NET, and UI in Angular, JS, etc. So in the most popular IDs like Eclipse, Visual Studio that we are using, there are ways, and that is known as behavior driven development, to write requirements inside the ID. So that is should be one of the fundamental visions of DevOps, where it should start not from development, but it should start from requirement gathering. Gather the requirement, process the requirement in such a way that it starts by involving the development and the infra team or the ops team, and ends up in going into production as a usable piece of code. So overall, if I have to sum up the last 5 minutes, the DevOps vision states that applications or teams should not work in silos. Using technology and using process, more important than technology is process. People should come together and work as a single team, if not possible by organization structure, at least by project structure. They should come together and work as single team, right from the requirement gathering process of a project to deployment. And believe me, this is absolutely possible in standard technology framework, be it Java or .NET. This is absolutely possible in all standard technology framework. So questions like, I would not be able to gather my requirements are gathered in Excel sheet and then written in Jira. So how would I integrate that with my ID? Now you can integrate using various frameworks of extreme programming or behavior driven development, TDD, ATDD. You can integrate your requirements very much into your IDs and can be transformed into useful automated test cases. So your first step towards transforming your organization or team towards more agility and a true DevOps team should be to write requirements as test cases or as specifications, transform them into test cases, and then start the coding. So that is a very beneficial approach and one of the fundamental pillars of the DevOps vision that we are discussing here. The second, first is requirement. The second vision is continuous integration and continuous deployment. A pipeline that is very robust and supports continuous integration of your code and continuous deployment along with code quality. So again, your organizations need not, or teams need not invest in pricey softwares like Cast, because Cast is a very good software, but it comes with a license fee also for code quality. You can use, to start with, you can use Sonar. Sonar is an absolutely free and very good platform for code quality and can be integrated with your continuous integration and deployment pipelines. And the third is continuous testing. So here we learned about three pillars. One is integrating requirement with your development pipeline. Second is integrating code quality with your continuous integration and deployment pipeline. And third is continuously testing the code at every point and at every phase of your software development lifecycle. So these are the main three focus areas of our DevOps vision. So DevOps practices are more powerful when applied to context of software delivery. By definition, it's never a one size fits all. So again, there is nothing called a DevOps formula. I mean, Scrum has its own ceremonies, its own framework, and you can apply that framework to manage your teams and to bring your team together to enhance the agility of your team. But DevOps, there's no one formula. It clearly depends on the people who are working in your project, the processes that you're following, and the technology or the tools that you're using. It will change every time. The requirements, the people, the process, most importantly, the technology changes. It's about drilling down your own organization specific problems and challenges. So as I mentioned, if your development team and operations team belong to two different organizational verticals or horizontals, then you as an agile coach or a scrum master need to plan on how to evangelize DevOps, how to bring these two teams closer and make them work such that they have a common goal. the goal of those two teams should not be different. The goal should not be that the development team has to develop code faster and the operations team has to resist and make the production more stable. They have to have a common goal, a common incentive to work together. They may not be two separate, they may be two separate teams because of organization structure, but as I'm repeatedly telling, they have to have work as a single team as per the project structure. And as a scrum master or agile coach, your role should be to do that. So as I mentioned some of the reports, so here just to mention, Puppet is a very popular infrastructure as code tool, and we have it as our as part of our upcoming webinars or upcoming courses. So Puppet, you can all go and check in Google. Puppet publishes a quarterly report which is known as Puppet DevOps report. It's not about specifically about Puppet, but it's about the entire DevOps scenario in various leading DevOps organizations. So they have found out that people can deploy 30 times more frequently, have 200 times short lead times, and 60% fewer failure when you are using DevOps, when you are properly implementing DevOps. Lean management and continuous delivery practices create conditions to deliver value faster and sustainably. So that's what Agile is all about, right? So developing, deploying values. High performance is achievable whether your applications are greenfield, brownfield, or legacy. So this is again one of the things I wanted to discuss. DevOps practices are not limited to new technologies. This is a mistake or this is a kind of learning we all had in our past DevOps implementation. Involving legacy teams, those teams which are working with mainframe or older versions of Java, J2E, etc., should also be equally participating and focusing on implementing DevOps, because as I told you, DevOps is not only about tools, also about people and process. So this is what it looks in an organization. We have business customers, we have development team, and we have IT operations and production support team. And as you can see, this is the wall that actually separates these two teams, the application teams and the operations team. And most importantly, in many organizations, as you will see, that the development team is more close to the customer because the business analysts are there, etc. Because of several organizational reasons, the development team is more closer to the customer than the operations team. So that is also one pit hole that you have to look into. And the goal of DevOps is, of course, to break this wall between the application development team and the IT operation team. So again, I'm reiterating this every time we will be changing slides or going into a new discussion. 3 things that is evidently you have to do as your pillars of DevOps. You have to keep as your pillars of DevOps vision. Requirements, DevOps thing, the DevOps transformation starts from requirements. So customers working together with your development team along with your operations team or representatives of operations team should define requirement clearly integrated into your application lifecycle management tool and your IDE. Application development team should continuously focus on improving code quality while doing continuous integration and deployment. And the operations team has to continuously, while the operations team continuously focus on improving the infrastructure automation. And the overall umbrella of all these things should be continuously tested using automation testing of any form. It doesn't matter whether you're using Selenium or whether you've got HP, UFT, whatever. Automation testing should be a fundamental pillar of your DevOps vision. So altogether, it goes as the business, that is different departments, needs, stakeholders, giving requirements to the agile team and the IT operations team, which are working closely to churn business value or dollars, hard dollars or soft dollars to the customers or the end users. So this is altogether the DevOps landscape. So you have a delivery team, you have version control, you have build and test, automation acceptance testing, user acceptance testing, and release management. So the delivery team develops the code. It checks in the code into version control, which is continuously integrated using continuous build and continuous integration strategies. I'll not go into technical details because this session is for a varied population. Automated acceptance testing, and user acceptance testing and release. So this pipeline should be continuous and should be tested at every point of time. So as we had discussed, the pillars of DevOps includes business agility, which is by providing the close integration of business requirements with your development tools or with your application lifecycle maintenance management tools. The time to market acceleration, experimentation, that is A to B testing, etc., has to be very robust and of course automated. The rapid prototyping using wireframes or using other various means of prototyping, and IoT iOS support, which may not be applicable in all the cases. Infrastructure automation using containerization, using binding deployments, lightweight hybrid cloud deployments, VMware virtualization, and technical innovation, which is basically using DevOps automation, using more and more automation, even from code quality standards also, blue-green deployment, and microservices. So these are the fundamental pillars of DevOps: business agility, involving technical innovation, and infrastructure choice. So our the take on DevOps, basically we have two fundamental take on DevOps. One is the development and IT operations handshaking with each other along with the customer. So even if this, again I'm repeating, even if this is not supported by your organization structure, you should make it as your project structure. And this is the most fundamental take on DevOps, which is suggested by Jez Humble, which is CALMS. You can just remember CALMS here, CALMS, means culture, which is basically institutionalizing process to enable DevOps. A is for automation, which involves automation right from the requirement gathering part to the deployment part. Try, imagine, and use automation as frequently and as much as possible. Lean, which is to use Six Sigma and other lean principles to make your process lean, shed out the extra fat, like reporting, day-to-day reporting, make reporting as automated as possible, for example. Measuring at every point of time and keeping a track of what you are measuring, and because that will only help you to improve. And sharing. So sharing is again very important. Without collaboration, DevOps you cannot have a very robust DevOps strategy. And by collaboration, I don't mean only about Scrum, the daily stand-up meetings and the other Scrum ceremonies. It also means having the incentives or defining incentives for the development team, and a common incentive set of incentives for the development team as well as for the operation team. So they all should have common interest focal points. The common interest points should be defined by the agile coach or by the scrum master or whoever is guiding them, so that they all think that they are part of the project team and not only a part of their own organization. So that is one of the first thing that you should do, is to find out what is the common incentive between those teams. Because if you don't find out the common incentive and their incentives or interest points are different, then of course there has to be conflict among those two teams, in which your DevOps strategy will evidently suffer. So these are some of the elements of DevOps: high trust and high performance culture, assets, automation, continuous delivery, and commitment to continuous learning and improvement. Okay, so we will come into this slide a bit later. Before that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Percy, for the discussion. So, guys, whoever is in the call, I think everyone able to hear. So, any questions anyone have, or any doubts, any experience you want to share, please go ahead. Everyone able to hear us?
Oh yes, I can able to hear you. I have a one question.
Sure.
The question is all about. Can you just run through this? I think hopefully you may be covering that in a soon. What are the main key tools which is used in a DevOps training?
Let me
Can you
just try to understand your question. Your question is you want to know the tools we can use for implementing DevOps or training DevOps?
Training DevOps actually. Training. What are the tools can be trained in DevOps? Like if in case if I enroll for a DevOps course maybe in the future,
Mm-hmm.
what are the minimum set
Okay.
of tools which I need to know?
Okay. Percy, I think you will be the best
okay?
person to answer this.
Okay. So I think this question was from Sridhar, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll answer this question in a minute because that is the purpose of this slide that you are seeing. So I'll just park your question and answer that in a minute after I answer any other questions. Is that fine?
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Yep. Perfectly fine. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone? Or, I mean, what are your views, or if you think you can even add your experiences or your own challenges that you faced as an agile coach or as a DevOps coach. I mean, not questions, like anything you want to share.
Okay, I think maybe not now. You can drop us a mail, and we also have an DevOps WhatsApp group where we do all kind of discussion related to DevOps. So if you want to join, I'll just ping you in the chat window on this discussion, so you can just join from there. And if you have any questions, you can ask that later as well. Okay, I think right
Okay.
now, Parsi, there are no questions, so you can proceed further and answer the questions Sridhar has asked.
Sure, sure. Our this is the slide that you're seeing is as the way we have structured our DevOps course or our DevOps consultation. Our we have divided the entire DevOps course, or you can say the entire DevOps program, into 4 levels. The first is DevOps fundamentals. So in this first level, there is no prerequisite. Okay, so you can whatever your background is, a developer, agile coach, scrum master, tester, software engineer, infrastructure manager, whatever your background is, you can join the you can join this first level, in which we will discuss about what is DevOps, why DevOps, market trends, DevOps engineering skills, delivery pipeline, where you will be learning about the fundamentals of DevOps tools, process, lean initiatives, etc. You'll learn about how to design and define a strategy of shared incentives that is so very important to bring the teams closer, gain fast feedback, and unified and holistic and automated release management. What is infrastructure by code, and then a special section on specification by example or behavior driven development, which is how you can integrate your requirements along with your technology delivery lifecycle or technology delivery pipeline. So that is level 1. Again, to repeat, there is no specific uh, requirement or prerequisite to do level 1. And then you have, after level 1, you have an option to go for a certification from International DevOps Institute, which is also will be guided by us. Level 2, to do level 2 also, there is it is good to have done level 1. Again, it is not a absolute prerequisite, but it is good to have done level 1 to have the basic fundamentals cleared. Level 2 basically deals with Git and GitHub, source control management on cloud, continuous integration with Jenkins pipeline, distributed build, continuous code quality using Sonar, and continuous inspection using Jenkins. So again, for level 2, you need a bit, it will be very good if you have a bit of Java or .NET background. It's not absolutely mandatory, but yeah, if you understand how to install Java or how to install how to do a bit of basic programming in Java, that will be enough. But if you have done level 1 from us, you can go ahead with level 2. Level 3 is containerization, where we specifically talk about Docker and Swarm and Kubernetes. Kubernetes is basically an orchestration tool, container orchestration tool that uses Docker. So prerequisites for level 3 is to do level 2. So if you have to do level 2 to go to level 3. And level 4 is the most advanced tools, which we will be discussing about Puppet, Chef, and Ansible. And again, to do level 4, you may not, the prerequisite is that you may not have done level 2 and 3. It's good to do, but you should have a good technical background to understand level 4. So any questions on this?
I think that answered your question, Sridhar, right?
Yes, very much. I have thank you so much for covering in detail actually. And I have another small follow-up question. If I
Sure.
want, for each level, there is any specific certification if somebody wants to do it as a level 2 directly, as there is no prerequisite. At level 2 also there will be a certification.
Yes, so certification means, see, from Agile Digest, we will be training you on level 1, 2, 3, 4. And then optionally, it depends on your interest. Optionally, we will also help you to do 2 main certifications which come in DevOps. One is a DevOps generalist certification from the International DevOps Institute, and a bit more, you can say, a more advanced DevOps architect certification, which also comes from the International DevOps Institute. And yeah, we will be after the course, we will be helping you to study for the certification, and we will be trying our level best so that you become successful in the certification.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. So I
Okay.
have a question in the chat window, that is by Errol Brian, and he says that
Carry on.
yeah, he has to have a clear guide and set of tools to give me confidence to operate as DevOps Scrum Master. Does your training cover this? Yes, Brian. So if you are already working as a Scrum Master, or if you have the basic understanding of Scrum, then you are most welcome to do level 1, which is like a non-technical introduction to DevOps, specifically for budding Scrum Masters or practicing Scrum Masters, and it will definitely help you define the DevOps strategy for your Scrum team. Mercy is saying, what is the cost for DevOps certification? So the cost will be covered by Niladri. If you have any questions on the cost, please, you can contact Niladri in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, again, I need to check the cost, but I need to capture all the participants' name. Whoever has participated this webinar, I'll give a 30% discount to everyone. So that is what we have discussed earlier. Also, any webinar participants will get some discount. So what exactly the current cost is, that you can actually explore in Agile Digest, or you can actually ping me separately on a WhatsApp group. I'll give you the link to see, and just consider a 30% discount for you, whoever is participants of this webinar. Okay, any other questions, Percy, you have, or anyone wants to ask?
Yeah, Pratyush is saying, could you please explain previous slide where WB is listed? Sure, Pratyush, let us go to the previous slide. Are you talking about this, Pratyush? You can ping me, or Yes, Pratyush is saying yes. Okay, so so this slide actually lists the main attributes and the key elements on how to transform an organization or how to bring about the DevOps change in that organization. So first is of course the culture, right? So in agile transformation also we have seen that it's all about culture. So first is to define and make people align to the culture, or change the culture in their currently operating, and make people align to the agile culture. So similarly, DevOps has a high trust and needs a high trust and high performance culture, because if there is no trust, or if there is no common, I'm repeating this word again, sorry for that, but it's highly important. If the team doesn't have common incentives, they will not be able to work as a single team. Second is to focus on the IT capabilities, because see, when you want to have a very smooth and robust, fast delivery pipeline or development pipeline, you should have assets all across the line. By assets, I mean automation assets, assets to check code quality continuously, assets to test code continuously, assets to build framework consistently, and so that it can be developed at a very increasing pace of time, right? So these capabilities needs to be developed in your team, because you cannot hire all you cannot completely form a new team by hiring people from outside. Your own people have to be trained, and it has to be done by the way they are doing their day-to-day activities to build assets in their organization. Highly automated processes, you must have highly automated, because other without automation you cannot achieve that kind of, that level of that speed of delivery or that robustness of delivery. So this high level of automation is absolutely needed. Like, I'll give you a very small example. The one of the teams which I have been working on has even achieved to deploy test cases. They are using Selenium for continuous testing, has even achieved to deploy their test cases in Docker containers. So that is the level of automation that you have to achieve. Continuous delivery of software and commitment to continuous learning and improvement. So these are the main elements. And also again, commitment to continuous learning and improvement comes from high trust and high performance culture. So these are the main elements of DevOps. This is not WBS, Pratyush. These are the different attributes and elements that has to be worked out to implement, and this is more or less sequential. So I'll be happy to discuss in the group if you have any further questions. Let me just check.
Hi, Percy.
Other question.
Hello, Percy.
Hello, hi.
It's Mercy. I just wanted to ask, as a Scrum Master, I'm currently exposing myself to robotic RPA, robotic automation processes. So I wanted to see, I wanted to know how that would work, because in my organization, I don't have access to the development team. So, and because we're not co-located. Now, how do I marry this to my project lifecycle? And how do I function as a Scrum Master? I get that the knowledge of DevOps is relevant, but how do I fit it in into my day-to-day as a Scrum Master?
Okay, Mercy, so there are 3 points which I would like to make. And the first is that to remove impediments. So as Scrum Master, one of your primary goal is to remove the impediments from the team. And robust envisioning or developing a robust DevOps culture, you will see yourself practicing a robust DevOps culture, and bringing the DevOps culture to your team will remove a lot of impediments or a lot of continuously growing impediments that your team faces. But you have to have that capability, or you have to have that clarity of evangelizing a proper DevOps culture. So first point is removing impediments. Second is the number of defects or the number of, or improving the overall code quality as well as the delivery quality of your Scrum team. So if you follow a DevOps culture, if you try to not technically, but even with the help of processes, tools, and people interaction, if you follow the DevOps, if you bring about a DevOps change in your team, a DevOps culture in your team, you will bound to have lesser number of defects and lesser number of user story refusals by the client at the end of your sprint. So first is reducing impediments. The second is improving the team, improving the performance of the team in terms of lesser number of defect. And third is, of course, and this will take a little amount of time, is improving the velocity of the team. The velocity of the team is bound to grow if they follow a robust DevOps culture and framework and set of processes. But yes, it will not be a one day or a one night journey. It will take time to grow, the team to mature and improve the velocity.
Thank you so much, Rusty.
Thank you. So any other questions? I'm sorry, Nagesh has written a question. As an ex-Tesla has a challenge to implement automation. Tesla has a challenge to automation, and I see there are some product organization also start facing the challenge. Nagesh, are there any disadvantage using DevOps, as we hear some challenges using Agile Scrum? Yeah, definitely, Nagesh. There will be disadvantages in any new technical or cultural framework, because the downside of this is that if not implemented properly, or see, as I told you, DevOps is not a silver bullet. It cannot kill mm, all the impediments of your project, right? So if you do not, and every project or every program or every product development has to have its own flavor of DevOps implementation. It cannot be common across all the projects. It's not like Scrum, where you have a set of predefined. It's not a framework. It's a kind of a set of patterns that you have to define, seeing your team or working with your team. It's like Agile coaching. One coaching method doesn't apply to all teams, right? So that is what, if not implemented properly, it will be a disadvantage for your team. And other disadvantages, there are technical disadvantages also, like integrating with legacy system, bringing in legacy system in your DevOps culture, etc. So, but those are very advanced level of disadvantages which has to be taken care by expert DevOps professionals. But yeah, of course there are disadvantages and there are loopholes which has to be filled up by very careful planning and strategizing DevOps for your organization or your project. Any questions, guys?
Okay, I think we don't have any questions as of now. Still, you can join that WhatsApp group for DevOps. Ask your any questions anyone have. Sometimes we'll able to answer. Sometimes some of the peer can answer, or some of the other participants can answer, when we can get the answer collaboratively. And once again, thank you everyone again for joining this webinar, keeping your time out of your busy schedule. This is a weekend for you. And once again, thanks for Parsi too, for explaining about the fundamental of DevOps and answering the questions. I am good for now. If anyone don't have any questions, we can bind up this call, and the recording will be published soon in our YouTube channel. Okay, thank you all. Thanks for connecting. We'll connect once again in our next webinar. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.